Good morning, everybody. It's an honour for me, a huge honour for me, to stand here today at the press and website launch of the John and Pat Hume Foundation for Peaceful Change and Reconciliation. Our hope that we would have been able to have a significant event in the Guildhall in Derry later this month obviously is on hold because of the COVID restrictions. But we're glad that we're able to come today to launch our website and hear from a number of the board members who will outline some of the planned work for the foundation. Somebody once said, boldness in battle is a fine attribute. But let's be clear, boldness combined with patience, tolerance and determination to use peace, democracy and non-violence to shape answers is an altogether higher virtue. This epitomises the life and work of John and Pat Hume. We hope the Hume Foundation will inspire others and future leaders in peaceful change and non-violent change. I'm going to just show a number of slides to outline the work and ambitions of the foundation. Our purpose is to advance the non-violent, peaceful change for present and future generations. Our purpose tracks the journey of John and Pat Hume over the last 50 years. Their work for peace, their work for jobs and investments, their work in building a more reconciled community, and their work in terms of civil rights and jobs and economic regeneration. Our patrons are Seamus Mallon, who sadly passed away in February but had agreed to be a patron, and we want to honour the inspirational work of Seamus Mallon through the work of the foundation. President Mary and Martin McAleese have also agreed to be patrons, and Senator George Mitchell has agreed, and obviously our prayers are with him, who is ill in Boston at the moment. And lastly, we have Nadia Murad from the Yazidi ethnic and religious minority, who has also agreed to be a patron. And she, when she was 19 years of age, the Islamic State attacked her village and killed 600 men. She was kidnapped and raped with many other young women. She's now an inspiration through her Nadian initiative to help women and children victimised by genocide, mass atrocities and human trafficking. And again, the list of patrons again cover the journey of John and Pat Hume in Ireland, internationally and worldwide. The board obviously is cross-community. The names are there. It's very important that we have a diverse board that represents communities in Ireland, from all sections of the community, and as diverse as possible, and with people who have an interest in international issues as well. Our principles are partnership, respect and resilience, core principles of John and Pat over the last 50 years, which apply still here today and apply to many conflict zones internationally. How are we going to implement those principles? It's through the work of the foundation, through leadership for peaceful change, a core theme of the foundation. That's through reflection, new thinking, thought-provoking initiatives, future-proofing and legacy. And just briefly reflecting, we want to reflect on the work of John and Pat Hume in non-violent peaceful change making and promoting their values. In terms of new thinking and thought-provoking, we will be organising a series of high-profile lectures on leadership for peaceful change. And we're delighted that President Michael D. Higgins, President Mary Robinson, Martin Luther King III, Fergal Keane, Nancy Soderberg and Nadia Murad have all agreed to give these lectures. Martin Luther King's lecture virtually will be on Thursday the 19th of November. We will also organise seminars, conferences and events which promote the themes of the foundation, including a shared home place, as I said, an event to annually recognise the role of Seamus Mallon, and obviously how we build a more just and peaceful society. And we will also look how we explore cooperation with institutions and higher education and others in terms of the work of the foundation. In terms of future-proofing, we want to develop bursaries to support young people from disadvantaged communities in line with the very, very dedicated work of John and Pat in areas of need in Derry and across the north to ensure that we can give people the abilities to grow and develop. And obviously, in terms of John's international role, looking at Hume Fellowships to support outstanding established and emerging leaders who are working in local communities and in societies trying to create more peaceful and non-violent transformational change. and we're looking at the potential for a John Hume and Pat Hume Peace Prize. And lastly, we are and will explore legacy projects which will explore the potential to have John and Pat legacy events and projects in Ireland. I now want to move on and invite Sean Farren to speak. He's the chairman of the foundation who's done a huge amount of work in the last year to bring the foundation to reality. Sean.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim. And can I join with Tim in expressing my welcome to all of you who are joining us virtually for this launch event this morning. I first became acquainted with John Hume through his frequent appearances on radio and television during the early days of the Troubles. There, he was proving to be both an excellent communicator and a formidable advocate for non-violence and for partnership. This was the message that attracted me and many hundreds of others to join the SDLP, where my acquaintance with John and his family soon ripened into a warm friendship. The message he articulated is the universal message that if we pursue the tactic of an eye for an eye, we eventually all end up blind. Violence in situations such as ours in Northern Ireland only makes, and here indeed only made, the situation worse, as relationships between our communities became extremely difficult to resolve in a positive manner. But it is those relationships, whether in Northern Ireland, between North and South, or between Ireland and Britain, that needed healing and reconciling, and indeed in many respects still do. So, whether it was through the civil rights movement or in the 3 parliaments in which he served, Stormont, Westminster and Europe, and through the links that he developed in the United States, John remained, despite considerable opposition at times, steadfastly committed to that message throughout the Troubles. Indeed, he and Pat became beacons of hope in those dark days. But John and Pat Hume expressed much more than a message of non-violence. In place of violence, they offered the message of partnership and respect for difference, of combining our talents, indeed, of spilling our sweat together and not our blood, as John himself would frequently say. Working through agreed political institutions to improve the economic and social life of our people. This message of partnership became the basis, of course, for the Good Friday Agreement. Our foundation's objectives are, therefore, not just to commemorate John and Pat Hume's contribution to public life, but to ensure that their message is sustained and developed for future generations. Along with all other board members, and I must say I'm exceedingly privileged to chair our board, I'm delighted that we have created a board that is cross-community and that is supported by the patrons that Tim mentioned earlier. We are also assisted in our work by an advisory council which is cross-community and indeed international. With this support and with determination to sustain and develop John and Pat Hume's message, we are confident that the foundation will prove worthy of its name. And finally, I'd like to thank all who have tuned in to this event this morning, and to thank those who have helped to organize the event. I trust that the website will encourage you to follow and indeed to support the activities of our foundation. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Sean. And I'm delighted now to call on Dawn Purvis, a member of the Foundation Board.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our launch. I'm hugely delighted to be part of the John and Pat Hume Foundation. and I'm very excited as to see the project develop and what we're going to come up with in the months and years ahead. I think it's really fitting that the Hume Foundation includes Pat, because as Father Paul Farron said at John's funeral, when the history of Ireland is written, if Pat Hume's name is not beside John's, it will be an incomplete history. Women have been involved in peace building for decades, particularly in Northern Ireland, but our contribution is often ignored or seen as secondary. And Pat Hume is a courageous leader who, alongside John, demonstrates the humanity needed to regard difference as a virtue to be celebrated, understood, encouraged to make peaceful change inclusive and sustainable. I often found peace building to be a very lonely place, one where you constantly review what you're doing and why you're doing it. You often ask yourself, is it worth the risk? And it does take courage, it does take grit and determination, but you also need to have compassion. And I think that the John and Pat Hume Foundation is almost like a home and a school and a career guide. It's a home where changemakers can recharge their batteries, get affirmation and receive affirmation for the work that they do. It's like a school because it will provide resources to inspire and assist a new generation of peaceful change makers. And it's also, I think, a career guide. So those who are interested in peace building or who are involved in peace building know what to do and where to go. How I wish there was a John and Pat Hume Foundation in the early years for me when I was involved in peace building. So I see that as such a resource for the future, and I'm very delighted to be involved in it.
Thank you so much, Dawn, for those beautiful words. Obviously, the name of the foundation is John and Pat Hume Foundation. We're delighted to have the support of the family, and on the board we have Professor Mo Hume, John's daughter, and we have John Hume, who's now going to speak from Zoom in Dublin. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Tim. And I just want to sort of just reiterate the support of the family of all the family for this initiative and for the foundation, and to say thank you certainly to Tim and to Sean and to everyone else that's been involved in getting this initiative to the stage it's at today. As a family, we are very, very supportive, and I think it's a fitting tribute to Mum and Dad's work to have this foundation. I think in particular from a family perspective, the fact that this is the John and Pat Hume Foundation is particularly important. They were a team in all senses of the word, and they worked so closely together, and they fed off each other for determination, for everything. And I think, it's been said many times, not least by Father Farron at Dad's funeral, that sort of, that Mum's role was absolutely critical. And I think, the role that she played, which will be reflected very much in the work program of the foundation. I think we're also very pleased that this foundation will be headquartered in Derry, and Mum and Dad are both products of Derry. They both sort of grew up in Derry, and Derry's a unique place in many ways, with a really, really strong sense of community and self-help. And I think that formed a lot of Dad's ideas in terms of, and Mum's ideas in terms of what they became, and their ethos of social and economic justice, how they got involved in things like the credit union, housing associations, and their overall their political thinking and ideology, if you would call it that, has come from Derry. So I think it's fitting that the foundation should be headquartered there, and hopefully it'll thrive upon that sense of community that is very much commonplace in Derry. So I think from a family perspective, we're 100% behind it. And behind this foundation, and thank you to everyone that has made the effort to get us so far.
Thank you, John. Obviously, the guidance and advice of the Hume family will be critical to the development of the foundation. And I want to call on our last member of the board speaking today is Sarah Canning, who's speaking from Derry. Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, Tim. I'm really glad to be here, albeit virtually, and I'm really honoured to have been asked to play a role in the John and Pat Hume Foundation. Growing up in Derry, I've seen firsthand the effect that the peaceful leadership that both John and Pat Hume has had. Whilst bombs fell and bullets flew, they steadily worked on ways to empower people, to improve opportunities, foster healing and reconciliation, to embrace diversity, and to level the playing field for all. That playing field is still something we should strive for, and we are closer to it than ever before. So empowerment and encouragement of our young leaders is vital. It's something I believe in passionately, and it's something I believe this foundation will contribute to enormously, both here at home and throughout the wider world. I'd like to finish just with a few words from The Cure of Troy, which John Hume spoke in his Nobel speech, and President-elect Joe Biden has also quoted. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. History says, don't hope on the side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, the longed for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. There's no more appropriate way to end with a Seamus Heaney quote, who obviously is a fellow Nobel laureate and very close friend of the Hume family. We're now going to open up to the journalists. We have Mark Simpson from BBC. Mark, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim, and well done on setting this event up in very difficult circumstances. I think many might say it's the mark of the man that this could have been held in a luxury hotel or the Guildhall, but given the times, and maybe it's the mark of the man, it's been held in a warehouse in East Belfast. Quick question for John Jr., if I can. John, knowing your father as you did and as you do, what's the one practical thing he would like you as a family now to achieve in his memory?
Well, I think one thing that never left Dad was the sheer good fortune in that he did the 11 plus and had access to education, and the sheer randomness of that. In that, had he been born a year earlier, his life would have been very, very different, and he wouldn't have had that access to education, never left him. And he was a great believer in the power of education to transform societies in a positive manner. And that's where I think he would look at the work of the foundation and see that develop, because I think he really did believe that sheer randomness of how he got access to education changed his life completely, changed our family's life completely, and you could even say potentially change the way of the entire country. And I think that was something that never left him. And I think he would see this, that the foundation should really sort of focus a lot of its efforts in that area.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark. Okay, next we have Amanda Ferguson.
Thanks very much for inviting us along to the launch. It's lovely to hear some inspiring news in what's been a very difficult week. It's not so much a question as more, perhaps Dawn could start. Are there any words of comfort for the public and for peace builders, given we're emerging from such a bruising week in politics in the north, in Northern Ireland?
In politics highlights how much work we still have to do in order to achieve the peaceful future that we all aspire to. I think the Hume Foundation will feed into that, hopefully, that people involved in politics at the highest level of leadership in this country will not be too proud to involve themselves in some of the initiatives and some of the resources that we would hope to provide. So I think it's timely, and I'm hugely excited for the future of the foundation.
Sean, do you want to add anything?
Well, could I say that the Good Friday Agreement never guaranteed that everything would be smooth thereafter, and that working together is an ongoing challenge to all of us, whether that's in politics or elsewhere in our society. So I suppose insofar as you can take anything positive from this week's very difficult political situation, is the fact that at the end of the week, a compromise, no matter how difficult and how unhelpful to some people it might appear to be, a compromise was reached. Our politicians spent the week, some would say squabbling, but debating, and I'm sure all of them were anxious to achieve a positive result, whatever that might mean to them and to others. But nonetheless, that's what we have achieved. And in a sense, let's hope that we learn the lesson that we have to work even more constantly and more effectively at the whole process of reconciliation and working together in ways that inspire rather than create despair in our society.
Yeah, and Amanda, obviously, one of the core pieces of work will be around leadership for peaceful change making, and you'll see on the website the importance of resilience. And John and Pat showed that over the many decades. So we want to encourage and promote emerging leaders, both in Ireland but internationally, who can show that resilience to overcome enormous burdens and enormous difficulties. Seamus McKinney from the Irish News, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much. And it's a wonderful event. Thanks for inviting me along. But the first question I submitted there has been answered, essentially. Can I ask two questions? You mentioned earlier, you talked about a John and Pat Hume Peace Prize. Can you outline a bit more on that? And my second question is, has the foundation moved on plans for any permanent physical tribute to John and Pat? I know that it's been rumoured that there might be a Seamus Heaney type home place, but has that moved on any, or can you outline any more on that? So that would be my two questions.
Maybe I'll take those. Obviously, the foundation has only been launched today, so obviously we do have plans for a John and Pat Hume Peace Prize. I think that'll be a much more community-based community-based prize rather than something that recognising international figures, because it recognises the work that John and Pat did on the ground, supporting those people, the quiet peacemakers. So we will be scoping that out in due course. Obviously, as part of the foundation, we're looking at legacy projects, but obviously we're only considering those things at the moment. Whatever we will do will have to be a sound project. We have dreams and ambitions, but in the first instance, what we will do is work out a proper plan and feasibility for any potential capital project. And equally, we know through COVID, the world has changed. So the social media, the digital world, Zoom, for good or ill, is a new world, and we want to appeal to younger people. So it may not necessarily be a capital project, it may be something more immersive in the digital world.
That's good. Thanks, Tom.
Susan, you're very welcome. Susan McKay. Hello, Susan.
Hi. Are you talking? Hi. No.
You're cutting up, Susan.
This really wonderful answer in itself. Oh, sorry. I'll try and move to somewhere where I might have a better connection. Is that any better now?
That's better, Susan.
Yeah, just to say it's fantastic that you've launched this wonderful initiative, and it's really great for me to see people like Pat and Sarah and Dawn, great, strong feminist women involved in the foundation, and it's just going to really change a great deal for the way that we think and look at politics here, I think. I wanted to ask you just in particular about the proposal for a university in Derry, a specific university in Derry, rather than just being part of Ulster University. And a lot of people have obviously suggested that that could be potentially the Hume University. And I wondered, is that something that the foundation is taking a position on at this point?
Sean?
Well, can I first of all say, welcome your remarks about the membership of the board. We have indeed tried to be cross-community and cross-gender in terms of its composition. With respect to the issue of university in Derry, the board has not taken any position on that. We will work with whatever institutions are there. And we're already in discussion with Ulster University. We'll be in touch with other institutions. We've had approaches from the Letterkenny Institute of Technology. And indeed, we're in discussions with people from Queen's University and from Trinity in Dublin, and indeed John's own alma mater in Maynooth. So there is a multiplicity of possibilities with respect to relationships at third level that we will be exploring. I don't think that the board will take up any particular position with respect to the question you asked about the University for Derry or its title. That's matters for others, I think, to decide, and we will work, as I say, with the institutions that are in place at any one time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Hey, thanks.
I think that's the last question. So thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for people both in Ireland and globally coming in today to listen to this. Could I just make one advertisement? The first Leadership and Peaceful Change lecture will be on Thursday the 19th, and it's Martin Luther King III, son of Martin Luther King, and that is a partnership with Politics in Action, which is a schools-based programme. They work with about 33 schools in the north and in Ireland, and the audience, it's particularly targeted at a younger audience, but we will send the link out and people could be able to watch that on the 19th of November, and we're very delighted with that because obviously John and Pat were inspired by the principles of Martin Luther King. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the contributors, especially Sarah and John virtually, and to all our journalists who've asked questions, and for everybody listening in. And you'll be hearing more about the foundation in due course. Thank you.